Welcome back, aviation nerds. Today we're blasting back to the early 20th century when fearless pilots and ingenious engineers tackled one of the wildest challenges in aviation history: landing and taking off aeroplanes and seaplanes from the deck of a moving ship. It's a story of guts, gears, and a few glorious faceplants. It's the 1910s, and aviation is basically the Wild West with wings. Navies around the world are dreaming big. Why not turn ships into floating airfields? The problem? Ships rock, roll, and pitch like a bad dance partner, and early planes were about as stable as a kite in a storm. Enter the experiments, part science lab, part circus act, that changed naval warfare forever. The idea of launching a plane from a ship and then landing it back on deck was straight up bonkers for the time. In 1910, American pilot Eugene Ely kicked things off with a death-defying stunt. He took off from a wooden platform on the USS Birmingham, basically a glorified plank, and later landed on the USS Pennsylvania in 1911. The landing setup, a rickety platform, some ropes and sandbags hooked to the plane's tail to stop it. Talk about serious trust in physics. Ely's success proved it was possible, but it was like threading a needle while riding a roller coaster. By the 1920s, navies were all in. The U.S. converted the USS Langley into the first true aircraft carrier, testing takeoff and landing techniques. Takeoffs were tricky. Short decks meant planes needed every ounce of lift to avoid a swim. Landings were even wilder. Engineers rigged up crude arresting wires, think giant rubber bands, to catch planes. The British and Japanese navies joined the party, experimenting with their own carriers like HMS Argus. Every test was a high-stakes gamble. Nail the landing, or you're fish food. But these trials birthed modern carrier ops, with innovations like angled decks and hydraulic arresters still used today. Now, let's talk seaplanes, the amphibious rebels of early aviation. These planes could land on water, which sounds easier, but getting them on and off a ship? That was a whole new level of crazy fun. Early experiments involved battleships and cruisers carrying seaplanes, which were hoisted aboard by cranes after landing nearby. Takeoff was even spicier. Ships like the USS Langley tested catapults, giant mechanical slingshots, that launched seaplanes into the air. The British Navy's HMS Hermes and Japan's Hosho got in on the action, perfecting ways to launch and recover these water-loving birds. The challenge was precision. For takeoff, pilots needed perfect timing to avoid smashing into the ship's superstructure. For recovery, they had to land close enough for the crane but not too close. Nobody wanted to be the guy who dented the deck. Engineers tweaked pontoon designs and crane systems, making seaplanes a key part of naval scouting and combat. These experiments laid the groundwork for modern amphibious aircraft and even drones that operate from ships. Okay, let's lighten it up. These experiments weren't all smooth sailing or flying. There were some epic fails. Picture this: a British pilot in the 1920s misjudges his landing on HMS Furious and ends up with his plane dangling off the deck like a kid's toy stuck in a tree. Or the time a seaplane's pontoon snagged a wave, sending it into a spectacular cartwheel. Pilot okay, ego not so much. These mishaps were serious learning moments, but you can't help but chuckle at the sheer audacity of it all. Every crash, splash, and near miss pushed engineers to make things safer and slicker. These early 20th century experiments weren't just stunts, they reshaped warfare. Airplane trials gave us the aircraft carriers that dominate modern navies, capable of launching jets across continents. Seaplane experiments paved the way for amphibious ops and versatile naval aviation. The courage of pilots like Eugene Ely and the brainpower of engineers turned impossible into iconic. And let's be honest, there's nothing cooler than watching a plane stick a landing on a deck the size of a football field in the middle of the ocean. So there you have it. The daring, sometimes hilarious, always serious experiments that taught us how to launch and land airplanes and seaplanes from ships. It's a tale of innovation, bravery, and a few oopsies that changed the world. If you're as pumped about this as I am, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you have the guts to land on a moving ship in a rickety biplane? Let's hear it. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.